Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being back. A special word of thanks to Undersecretary Hagel for his service, and just would note that he was a great traveling companion to the North Pole not too long ago. So if you ever go back to the North Pole, please call me. Love to make a return trip. I want to ask a question or two about ships. You know, I've been in Congress for about a decade, but I've been around the Navy all my life because I'm from a community where the Navy has a big presence. And I've seen times when the Navy was modernizing and transforming and changing. I've seen leaner times when the Navy was had ships that couldn't deploy because maintenance had been neglected. But I never have seen a time when we didn't need the Navy. Its flexibility, its firepower, its presence. There's never been a time we didn't have that need. And I guess when I look at the number of ships, it makes me think about how important the ships are. And then for the last year, we've had briefings about how we need to pivot to the Pacific, that's the geographic area that we've got to be concerned about in terms of our national security. And I guess to be successful there, we'd need a strong maritime presence. And so that seems to indicate probably more ships as well. And I know that there was a time when Ronald Reagan said we ought to have 600 ships and 15 aircraft carriers. And times have changed. The ships today are a lot more capable, a lot more technologically advanced. But I don't think we ought to kid ourselves. I think numbers still matter. And we still haven't figured out the age-old problem of how you have one ship in two different places at the same time. And the world hadn't gotten any safer. I know the world hadn't gotten any smaller. And so when I look at the budget, Mr. Secretary, in my opinion, the numbers just don't add up. On one hand, you have the Secretary of the Navy saying that we're going to grow our fleet size from about 285 to a little over 300, and that makes sense, but that's contradicted by the fact that the Navy is going to require 20 less littoral-combat ships than they planned. You mentioned 11 cruisers are going to be laid up. I don't know exactly what that means. There's talk that maybe a carrier that still has 25 years of useful life that might be decommissioned. So it seems to me that you got to figure out how we're doing all this counting, because if you're taking 11 cruisers that don't have weapon systems and don't have crews, I don't know if they're counted in part of our fleet. I don't know if you count an aircraft carrier that might or might not be decommissioned. So ordinarily, I'd ask the Secretary of the Navy this question, but Mr. Secretary, my understanding is a lot of the decisions that are being made are coming from your office, which is appropriate. In other words, which ships we're going to keep, which ships we're not going to keep, how much money we're going to spend to develop the Navy that we need today. And so I do think it's appropriate to ask you if you could tell this subcommittee how you plan to meet those requirements. And I'd like to ask General Dempsey if he's looked at those plans, and if does that, you've kind of validated the size and the makeup of this planned fleet, because as I understand it, the combatant commanders, when they request assistance from the Navy, they are accommodated about less than half the time. So I've seen the number 43% of the requests that are made by the combatant commanders actually have the requirements met. So it seems to me if you face greater risks and you have less ships, then there'll be even less a percentage of those requirements be met. So if you all could comment on those two, I would very much appreciate it.
Congressman, first, yes, we're going to need a Navy. I don't think there's any question about that. The Navy is a critically important component for forward presence and power projections and all the things that you know. So make no mistake, no one is suggesting otherwise. That's first. Second, of the specific examples you used, all of those examples you used except one, the LCS, and I want to come back to that, those were recommendations made to me by the Navy. So those were not initiated out of my office. Those came from the Navy. And I accepted them, and I'm going to address LCS. But I think the bigger point here is if you've only got so much money to go around, you've only got so much money to go around. And I can't invent more money. And so I've got to balance a budget. I've got to balance our force structure, because I don't think there's any question that we're still going to need an Army and an Air Force and modernization. Half of our money goes to compensation, retirement, benefits, so I don't think there's any question there. We want to make sure our people are taken care of. So I've only got so much. I'd like to have more ships. I'd like to have more planes. Everybody'd like to have more of everything. On the LCS, you made the comment that we're taking 20 of the LCSs out. That's not exactly right. The program of record for the LCS was 52. The decision I made was play that out to 32. There's a specific mission for the LCS. But what I asked the Navy to do, directed the Navy to do, and they accepted this, is to come back to me by the end of the year and tell me, give me some options for a more capable LCS, one that's far more survivable than this one. Upgun. This panel has already talked about, and we'll hear more about, as this focus should be, the technological capabilities of our adversaries. You can have a lot of ships, Congressman, but if they don't have the capability to survive and the power that they need, and the projection of that power is yeah, that's out there, but if they can't survive these new technologies, then I'm not sure we've made the right decision. It isn't a matter of we're going to lose 20 ships. What I said to the Navy is, come back to me, see if there's a better way to do this. All that money is not that was budgeted for the LCS is not taken out of their program. So if that helps clear that up, that was the reasoning behind this. So in the interest of time, I'll be glad to go further on any of this.
The time is of the essence. I know you want to weigh in, General, but I do want to get to other members. Thank you, Mr. Crenshaw.